Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of Julie Willis, the owner and CEO of Zendira. This is a very special episode. Not only do I work with Julie, she is a friend. We are coming out with a bag together. So exciting. I like how I just spoiled that in the intro. But if you're interested in hearing more about that, along with some concepts around off-body carry and hybrid carry, this is the episode for you. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Let's get into it.
Yeah. I mean, even like, I think when I was designing the Active, which has a buckle, I'm doing this because that's where the buckle is. It's the same buckle that's on the Tactical. Yes. And it is a quick release because, yeah, there are some folks that were like, well, I need to be able to unhook it. And I was like, okay, but that's an advanced level. If you intend to unhook for a specific reason, maybe you're armed in the bag or not, but if somebody's using it against you, maybe from the back, if you know that that's something you want to train towards, then you do that. And so that's why that's an option, but it's not a beginner move.
Right.
Yeah. Like, at all.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think some of it, something as I've gone through, I've been in martial arts since I was, a little kiddo, like 13 was when I started. Something I've seen as a theme throughout all the styles is there's usually a subset of like very common moves that remain consistent. And one that kind of came up when I'm thinking back to when I rolled with the fanny pack, my partner got me and she took my back and she used the cord. And we're, by the way, guys, if you want to switch over to the YouTube version to get the video of this, you totally can. Otherwise, this isn't going to make much sense. But the cord or the strap of the bag, she pulled across my neck. And of course, like my thing I had to do from there was frame. And I had to try to kill her wrists to one side and then even like use my feet to frame. Framing is when you're just pushing someone away with your appendages, your arms, your legs. And that was a unique experience. So yeah, there are a few moves you can train for like worst case scenario, like if that happens. At the end of the day, the bag has the gun in it. I don't know that I would unclip unless I was just being like choked out, like if I really had to release this. But to have the wherewithal, to have the fine motor skills to do that in the middle of a fight, I don't know. That's one I'll have to explore a little bit more. But yeah, of all clips you could have chosen, I mean, this is a honker. This is a beast. Yeah, and not in the sense that it doesn't blend in well, because it is very slim. Of course, not compared to your like kind of not your, but very typical plastic clips you see on the majority of bags. It's not as slim as those, but it does like blend in with the make of this bag as well as the others, which I really like. But yeah, is this a good time to break into the creation of this style bag? Like what made you go from this style to the Monday style for those not watching to the Friday? This is the full size and the Active style bag here. And of course, Saturday is very similar. I don't know which one came before the other.
Friday, and then full size Friday, and then Active Friday, and then Saturday. Saturday just, I know. Like,
Friday, Saturday.
I don't know. I almost named the Saturday the Friday night because it's just fancier. But
I like Saturday though.
Yeah, it's a different, there's a different curve. Actually, there's multiple different curves going on. It's a really interesting, easy story. I was in a cafe here in Mexico working, and there was this woman and her husband and their son. I think it was like 3 or 4. And she'd gotten up to use the restroom, and then she came back. I saw her crossbody bag, and I had heard them speaking English. And so I said, "Hey, I really like your bag." And she goes, "Thank you. I designed it." And I was like, "Where are you manufacturing?" Because like I'm having a heck of a time. And she was like, "Yeah, we did too. So we just started our own factory." And I was like, "Please sit down and be my friend forever. Like, don't ever leave me." And the Friday was basically was kind of like her bag, except, you know, I was like, I bet I could put a gun in it, which, you know, is a game I play when I'm like out shopping. I'm like, I could put a gun in that.
Right.
But with hers, you know, she was very protective of the design because she'd worked so hard on it. Because like just getting a curve on a body, because we're all different, but getting one that is fairly universal, that took a lot of work, and she had the pride associated with it. And so she was like, well, you can't use mine. And I was like, okay. But that is basically the Saturday. We worked our way up to that point where she was willing to try, you know, and we had to make it bigger and do some things differently. But yeah, that's how the Friday happened. Was she was like, bring me something similar then. And I was like, okay. And I did. And we got going. But yeah, that's how it happened, was because I made a comment in a cafe to a stranger that I liked her bag.
Ooh, I love stories like that. It's a sliding glass door moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And they hadn't taken on any other brands because they have their own work. And so it was a leap for them too. So
absolutely. And I'd love for you to talk about the leather of the bag really quick. I don't think that's something, I don't see that talked about a lot on your website, unless I missed the website. Not. Yeah, it's not like I'm one of the brand educators now. And
I think you're the only one.
Am I? I'm over here like, is this on the website? I should know the website. Call myself out here. But for those of us who do not know, where do you, like, what's special about the leather? Why this leather? How'd I do?
Why this leather? Well, most of the leather that comes from Mexico is coming out of León, and it's up about 6,000 feet. So we're in the middle. We're not, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but, you know, I don't get to the beach very often. And every time I end up telling somebody, you know, like I get a sales call or something, and I'm like, I can't really talk right now. I'm in Mexico. They're like, oh, well, you have a great time. I'm like, yeah, I'm here like a lot, but thank you. Like, that's not why I live here. This isn't a beach moment, but I appreciate that.
Right.
So like, that's where, when my story started, I ended up at a factory that very first visit because a guy liked my friend. So she was like, see if Carlito will help you out. I was like, okay. So I WhatsApped Carlito and I was like, hey, I'm Christy's friend. You know, I'm interested in doing leather bags. You know, can I talk to you? And he was like, yeah, we do boots. They have like 4 huge boot factories, like all the brands, you know, the Lucchese's, the Tacovas, that same line, same folks. And so I showed up. He sent me a drop pin, which was a fun, interesting way to roll into my first factory.
Yes.
And yeah. But he was super nice, took me on the floor, got to meet a bunch of people. We went upstairs, and his very first question was, are you funded? And I was like, no, I'm fired. Like, I am so not funded. And he's like, okay, you know, I have a friend who works with small brands. So he sent that guy a message, was like, hey, I'm sending somebody to you. Drop the pin. The driver and I go. And then that guy's like, oh, well, do you have designs? And I was like, no, I just got here. I have no idea what I'm doing. And he's like, cool. Well, you'll also need leather. So since you're here, go to this tannery. And I was like, okay. And it's a showroom tannery. Like, it's nice. It's pretty. It's like fancy wood and like.
Yeah. I've seen a video from it. It's right. It's where you sent the like.
Yeah. It's not real, but it's pretty. Right. Yeah. They definitely aren't tanning in the back.
Right.
And I learned a lot doing this the first year.
I'm sure.
The hard way. That was apparently the only way that I was going to get my lessons. But that whole experience, like one trip, there was no gatekeeping. It was like, yeah, go see my friend, go see my friend, go see my friend. And then I was sitting in the back of this car, you know, because there was a driver who took me around. Thank goodness. There was no way I was going to make that happen. And I'm just holding these samples, and I'm like, every door just opened. Mm-hmm. that doesn't happen. And I had no idea what was on the other side. I didn't belong in this industry. Like, I had no idea what it took. Thankfully, I had no idea. I think if I'd known, this might not be the conversation we're having. I might have tried to find another job instead.
Right.
But the leather, I mean, you can't match it. You can't replace it. It is so good. And these hides are actually coming down from the US, and because that's where the bulk of the processing of the animals is done. And then the leather comes down and is tanned and then comes back up as different items. So it's a revolving circle in this industry, but it is fascinating to get to understand just like the teeny tiny differences of the calibre, so the caliber of leather, and how if it's this, like if it's a 12, what that looks like on a bag versus if it's a 14 versus if it's a 16. Like, it is a different bag, and why would you know? I certainly didn't know, and I ruined a lot of samples by being like, take this, it's pretty. And they were like, okay, lady, you don't know anything, but we'll do what you asked. And then that goes nowhere because I didn't know. But luckily, because the factory, and my I like your bag, she'd figured that out on a lot of things. And so they had their suppliers and their pipelines and the relationships, and a lot of it is from really, really small tanneries, like a guy and his dad, and they've got a couple other people that work for him. But, David, makes the deliveries. And so for a while there, people were complaining because they were like,
why that was so funny to me. David makes the delivery.
Yeah. I mean, it's David. But like,
it's David.
People would complain. They're like, this leather really smells. And you're like, yeah, it was tanned like 30 days ago. Took 30 minutes to get dropped off. They cut, they sew. DHL's got it. It's coming up. We turn it around. It's in your house. Yeah. It wasn't on a container ship for a month after being, stored for however long. It's like, yeah, it does. It smells like a tack room.
Right.
I'm unapologetic about that. Sorry.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's even something I told you. And it made sense. Like, once you explained it, I was like, oh, like, I'm just so far removed from the manufacturer's process that, it's like that just reminded me. I saw this reel the other day, and this woman was showing her homestead, and she took a chicken from her farm and she killed it and cooked it. And all these people were like, you are a murderer. And it's like, they eat chicken, but they're just so far removed from the actual process that they're adding in their own perception, and they're viewing it through their very limited lens. So this is a very interesting perspective to hear. I'm glad we have it on the podcast.
Yeah. I notice even just as I'm talking about it, how animated I get, because it's super fun. Like, I used to make spreadsheets and PowerPoints and
yes, very fun.
Send emails with all the CCs, to cover everybody's, and now I'm just like, what are we doing? What is this? And, I get to touch it, and like, it wasn't real until I did my first photo shoot. And I was in the back, and the first one was at a hotel in Mexico City. And we had 4 models, and I think maybe the Tuesday was in it. Like, those things didn't even happen. Like, I was way ahead. I jumped the gun. I didn't know what I was doing. It was a lot of fun, though. And I still work with that team because they were there, right, at the beginning. But the photographer sent me some photos while I was in the Uber on the way to the bus station to come back up this way. And I still remember, I can tell you the picture, and I was just like, this is real. I did a thing. Like, this could be wildly successful. This isn't just, I don't know, I'm going to try it. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, I did a thing. And it actually happened with the thing that you and I haven't talked about on this podcast, but I threw that thing on a model a few months ago just to be like, how does this look? Whoa.
Yeah.
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 Wait, is this the, okay. Are we talking about it? Or are we waiting for part 2 to announce it? Are we talking about, we're talking about
I think we're talking about it. We're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fanny pack?
You talk about it because I've been talking. I got to take a sip.
Oh my gosh, no. That's kind of the whole point. So podcast, you're the guest speaker. That is how that works. Nothing is more awkward than a guest speaker who like doesn't want to be on the podcast. That has only ever happened to me like one time, but to this day, I'm like, God, please don't send me anyone that doesn't really want to be here. Anyway. Yeah. So I think what we're trying to say is we're coming out with a collaboration line. The bag is called, shall we say it? It is the Sofia bag by Zendira. And this will be a dressy fanny pack with concealed carry in mind, just like these. And it checks all my little boxes for concealment in a bag, which is that there should be a separate compartment for your firearm. There should be no finagling between your wallet, your lipstick, your keys, and your gun. Wow, the Velcro is stuck to the carpet. There should be a hard Kydex cover over the trigger guard so that if you were to reach in and for some reason your finger were to slip over the trigger guard, we are not accidentally pulling the trigger. And lastly, the holster that is holding the firearm, so this is more holster specific, which we're kind of about to segue into that, should be fit exactly for your firearm. And I guess this is as good of a time as ever to bring up Andrew Henry.
Yes.
Andrew Henry is the owner of Henry Holsters. He's based out of Indiana. He is the manufacturer of the Filster Enigma. If you've heard of that, that's who he is. Honestly, at this point, I consider him an industry friend, incredibly professional, intelligent, and encouraging person to know. So I'm just very, very lucky to have him. And honestly, the conversation was around trying to find a method that I was happy with. I was super picky about what I wanted the holster to be that was sold with a bag. And I told Julie, I was like, man, if we could only just have a fully Kydex holster with the Velcro backing. And I remember, I was like, I need to reach out to my friend Andrew. I want to just chat with him. And it turned into a collaboration. Do you want to tell, right? Do you want to tell that story? Or, I mean, I feel like I've set you up here, so.
I might have by just saying, turns out there we are on a plane.
Yes. But, hopped on a plane.
Yeah. And not only that, at the range, like we drilled that sample. And we found one thing lacking, and luckily he knows what he's doing. And so we just sent him a quick video from the range to be like, this and this and this, and we wanted to do more this. And he was like, okay. And then by the time we were done with the range and back in his facility, he knew exactly what he needed to do and how to do it. And now we have new samples, and it's people that love what they're like, the problem solving part of it, that are just like, yeah, this could be better.
Yes.
Like there's nothing wrong with saying this could be better. I mean, eventually you have to get the product out, but it can be better. Like we can all move these things forward. And I love the idea of having a full Kydex. I didn't see anything that existed beforehand really. And
no.
Yeah. So now we're making something that'll be good for anybody's bag. Like it doesn't have to be a Zendira. This is an improvement. I'm happy to say over whatever you have, this will be an improvement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to say, just to kind of brag on Andrew a little bit. My first call with him was actually just about hybrid holsters with a leather backing. And I just want to be clear. They're not bad in the sense that they can never be used. They just require frequent replacing because of the degradation over time. This is not something that is common knowledge. It's not explained by the manufacturer. This was something that I just figured out by using my hybrid holster so much. The particular holster I'm referring to has a leather backing and a Kydex outer shell. And this is a great moment to refer to the Andrew Henry episode because he goes into a lot of detail on this. And we got to record this from the actual Henry Holster's headquarters. And just like learning about how Andrew runs that place is just so interesting. If you're thinking like, oh, like a holster manufacturer doesn't sound like something I want to listen to, I promise you will not be disappointed. It was just one of my favorite episodes I think I've ever done. And that's hard to say because I have so many incredible guest speakers, but Andrew's just like out of this world intelligent and I could listen to him talk forever. He and I spoke on just a random FaceTime call one day. I was like, hey man, I'm trying to explain some kind of like contraindications of hybrid holsters with leather backings. And I don't really know how to articulate why they're not the best, because I've noticed my gun slipping out of this one that I've had forever. Does that mean I can just heat it up and press on it and make the Kydex tighter? And we just had this full discussion about how over time, when you pull the firearm out of a hybrid holster, you are slowly degrading the material. And when you have something that is softer than Kydex on the opposite side of that holster, as you pull in and out repeatedly, you are slowly wearing more on the leather side than you would the Kydex. And so some brands out there have emailed me back to my inquiries about this particular circumstance, and they've told me to heat up the Kydex and press on it, which, as you can imagine, introduces user error. We're putting in our own take on like the shape of the Kydex. We're changing that integrity of the holster itself, and we are, as a result, sacrificing retention. And if you're listening and you're like, that sounds like a problem that I wouldn't have to deal with down the road, whatever, every holster you have is going to lose its retention over time. Even if it's a fully Kydex holster with discrete carry concept clips drilled in, you have to do some type of maintenance over time. It loosens every time you pull it up and out of your pants and clip it back into your belt. It just happens. So our goal is to create a fully Kydex for safety, but also fully Kydex for the purpose of being able to buy once. And what he did is he created a Tegris backing, and this is actually not the final prototype. So if you're watching the video, we actually have a longer backing to this Tegris material and Velcro to bring the gun closer into the backing of the bag, so that when you pull the bag open, your gun doesn't cant forward, it actually stays back even more. And that's what Julie was talking about. We went to the range and we learned that together, in addition to cutting open the bag a little bit, which was fun. We did. With scissors. Like we did that. We probably looked absolutely crazy. That was such an interesting day. I think I've blocked it out of my memory. We went to a very public range.
Yeah.
And we were just like,
talked our way in to draw from concealment, which, is every ranger's nightmare.
Yes.
But we used, I think, enough words to be like, no, I promise we know somewhat what we're talking about.
Right.
And they put us on the side and gave us like an 8-lane buffer from anybody else. And,
yes.
And we were very good about following the rules.
Very good.
And we were rewarded with being left alone to do the weird things like cut open a bag and take a whole bunch of random pictures and videos of what we were done. But just watching that firearm just kind of cant away from you. And then as you were trying to drill, it wasn't where it was the last time. And that's not acceptable.
Right.
That is 100% not acceptable. So at least we were able to be like, but what if we could do this? And he was like, you can do that. I can do that. Ta-da. And it's done. It's a real thing. And actually, I texted him today and we had a quick exchange about moving these forward, because it's just such an obvious good idea.
Yes.
And a need. So it's fun to be part of that and watch someone else work who, cares about it that much.
Absolutely.
He is solid. Yeah. And I got to watch you make a podcast from the other side of the camera. And I also monitored the time to be like, I think that Dairy Queen is going to close in 10 minutes. Not to like use a TikTok audio, but it did close. But we still got ice cream.
Did we go to McDonald's?
We did.
Yeah.
And then we almost did a deer.
What?
Then we almost hit the deer.
Oh my God. Yeah. We almost hit a freaking deer. That was such a wild trip. We called each other and we were like, hey, do we want to go to Indiana? And it was kind of like this. Yeah, we do want to go to Indiana. Let's go to Indiana. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. What day? Sure.
Right. We had I think we went the following weekend or something.
Yeah. It was fast.
It was very fast. So wonderful though. Like, thank God I was, and I'm still in my like YOLO, like I'm ready to ship out. You want to send me somewhere, I'll go. Like, I'm so glad we did that. And that was before we like officially started working together too. So I feel like that gave us a chance to talk. And I got to know your vision more. And you really met me when I was in my prime of skepticism of off body.
Yeah.
And I had kind of played with the Vertex fanny pack and I really liked it. I started carrying it a lot. I almost felt like guilty for it. It was a weird time. And I really liked that Vertex fanny pack, but it's not good with a dress. It's not good with a sweater and cute boots and a long coat. Like, there are outfits where we need to have more options. And even this active version is a step up from that. Are you in search of top-notch gear that exceeds your expectations? Look no further than GPS, brought to you by Go Outdoors Incorporated. GPS has been dedicated to crafting the finest products for hunting and shooting since 2002. As someone who frequents the gun range, my GPS bag is a staple to safely and effectively haul my gear. My personal favorite is the GPS Tall Range Backpack, which makes walking USPSA stages simple and organized. Their specialized bags are designed to keep all of my valuable equipment secure and organized. With GPS, you can experience the ultimate peace of mind. There are 3 exciting product lines: GPS Tactical, GPS Wild About Hunting, and GPS Wild About Shooting provide the perfect solution for your specific needs. So whether you're on a hunting expedition or hitting the range, GPS is your reliable companion. To find a bag that fits your needs, use code SHESHIELD20, that's SHESHIELD 20, to save and to support the pod. Again, that's SHESHIELD20 at checkout, in my opinion. And it's very different in its own ways. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it has a different look. And, you know, the popularity of the Vertex and of the Rose one, I mean, has changed the conversation dramatically around this. And the education and content that Lena has put out and that exists in the Rose community, well needed.
Yes.
And I think that's why, I mean, that's definitely part of the reason why I'm leaning into it myself, is because I haven't done that and I need to. And it's important. It's important not just that the brand shows, pictures in a way where it's how you really ought to use it. Like, I saw a picture recently of a bag that's very clearly, due to what she's doing in the photo, not on her dominant side. So like, she's never going to get into that. And it's like, cute picture. Can we all just decide that we're going to show these things the way they need to be used and like just reinforce the safe handling and, carrying in a bag and not just like cute picture? Like, I get it. I have how many Google Drives full of cute pictures, but they don't make it out. Yeah. It's gotta be locked in. So, okay, I got back up on my high horse.
That's all right. I can jump up there too. One thing we haven't talked about is magnets versus zippers.
Yeah.
Or maybe I should have said, hey, what makes Zendira and the draw method unique from, say, a Vertex fanny pack? Not to say we're not comparing them directly in that sense, just the like draw method. Julie, what would you say makes...
Back to that very, very beginning, first 3 weeks of the idea of doing a concealed carry bag and not having an idea what I was doing, I reached out to some friends because I was with Army Futures Command in Austin. I was the lead on their strategic communications team that was a contract team. I like to say that because it's very important that you know I was a contractor and I was not in uniform. For the people who have been in uniform and those who are contractors, it's a very separate thing. But
yeah,
it exposed me to the ecosystem and military technology and, you know, new gear for the warfighters. And I got to meet a lot of really interesting folks. And so I picked up the phone and was like, hey, I think I want to do this. But like, this part seems like a bad idea. And I had one, you know, former spook who's making some really cool stuff. And he was like, solve for the zipper. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't even know what that means. And he was like, you know, he over-engineered, you know, just on the spot. He's like, what if you had a button and when you pushed it, like it popped out? And I was like, whoa, 00. Like, no.
Whoa, 00.
Too far.
I love that.
Yeah. So, you know, I was like, well, I went down the magnet path. And that had its own learning curve because magnets have different strength and they have different things. But after that, I mean, there's really no going back for me. Like, I could not put a zipper between a woman and her firearm because I know how often my zippers snag or whatever. Like, if I'm flustered and I'm in the grocery store line and, you know, there's a long line behind me and, you know, maybe I was distracted and now I'm like, oh, I got to get my thing out. Like, imagine if that was an actual, you know, reason to draw a gun. I don't know. Nope. I drew that line. So magnets. That's what Zendira is known for. That and Kydex. Because we don't use the universal one size fits nothing Velcro soft holsters.
Black on black. I love when I do that. You know, many people have DM'd me and they're like, can you wear a color other than black? You have a black background. I'm like, haha, I painted it gray.
Hey, look, one step. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I do get comments about like, can you make it a different color? And I actually did meet a Velcro manufacturer recently that can do different. But then anyway, this is not the podcast conversation. I was just in my head. I'm like, but then if you open it, now it's like what, neon yellow, and now that's weird. And then the gun obviously sticks out. Like, how do you balance conceal in the, I don't know. But as soon as you open it up and your hands on it, you know, you're heading into felony territory. So kind of there at that point anyway.
Might as well be neon yellow.
Might as well be neon yellow. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
No, I love that. Yeah, it's first time I've heard of it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, I'm really grateful for that guy for saying solve for the zipper. And yeah, we're still in touch. You know, he got to watch me do it. Just, I mean, how often do you give people advice they never use?
Right. All the time. Yes. Yeah. No, that's lovely. And when it comes to, I know this is kind of like the Andrew Henry episode. Like, I'm learning a lot about manufacturing. How do you find high quality magnets? Because I would think, when I think magnets, I think like magnets can break. So like, how do you source that? Yeah,
they will shatter when they collide. Mm-hmm. It's really fun. You learn that very fast, and how to, like, you kind of peel them off. You're not going to like them apart.
Right.
All rare earth magnets, which is and I'm going to butcher this, but neodymium. The only place on the earth where this mineral is found is China. So your magnets are coming from China, no matter what magnets really they are. So they're usually imported to the US. Sometimes they're treated. Like, ours do have a coating that helps with tarnishing. But recently we had some returns, and a little inside baseball. My mother she does all the logistics for shipping out the leather bags. And she also receives, when we get the active bags, back as a return as well. And if there's a problem, you know, she sets them aside, and we usually send them to like an instructor or a range, so that they can, you know, give folks an opportunity to get their hands on them. And, you know, it's kind of like they get to go live the good life at a range. But Mom and I had this pile over Christmas, and we were like, what do we do with these actives? Like, you know, whatever the issue was, usually zipper related. And I was like, well, let's try to like harvest these buckles, because the buckles are really expensive. We could not get the buckles out because it's a cut resistant webbing. And
yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, we tried all the scissors. We failed on that. And I was like, well, maybe why don't we like try to harvest the magnets? Because, you know, those we can get out. So we're cutting into the bags. And I mean, we got one before we were like, this is a terrible idea. We're done. We're done doing this. And then Mom walked over to the fridge because, you know, she's got magnets on the fridge, and got about 6 inches towards it. And it just popped out of her hand, and just, because they have a 12-pound, their N42 is like, you know, should you find yourself trying to buy magnets?
Trying to classify, yes.
Yeah. It's a 12-pound pull strength. So it should take 12 pounds of effort to pull it apart. And that's before you put the, you know, anything in front of it. But yeah, that puppy just flew right on. She's like, oh, do we move it? I was like, we can like slide it up. But yeah, so now Mom has one magnet on the fridge that is like on there much more than the other.
That's so funny. I also just thought of a pickup line that is so specific to knowing magnets. I'm sure you can guess it. If you were a magnet, you'd be an N42 because you're so attractive. I know. I'm basically Bo Burnham.
Flyers to Showcase is on Monday. It's Shot Show. Bet you could use it there.
I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. It's going to come out. I'm never going to forget N42 now. And neither will you, listener. I love that.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have had a lot of problems getting magnets in to Mexico, to the factory. Like, I flew a couple of years ago to Tijuana, walked across the border, and went to a UPS store where we had shipped it, like, you know, from within the U.S. because we couldn't get them through customs. They kept getting stuck.
Oh, man.
And we had orders for Christmas. And so I flew to Tijuana, walked over, took an Uber to UPS store, got him, walked back over, got on a plane, same day, flew back, and was like, magnets.
Yeah.
But you do what you got to do. And yeah, those little things are, you know, the fun beginning stories. Someday it'll all be polished and I won't have fly to Tijuana and walk across the border stories, which turns out is very easy.
Right. Absolutely. It just adds to the perseverance story, which I think is going to be its own thing one day, like when you write that book. So, you know what I mean?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. For real. You're going to do it someday. I'm going to keep bothering you about it. But yeah, I kind of just want to take a moment to highlight, like, not only do you have cut resistance webbing, which I love that, because I feel like that's a common counter to off-body carry. Like, can't I just come up behind them and cut the bag off? No, you can't. And then you have a fully metal or aluminum Cobra buckle. Well, aluminum is a type of metal, I guess, but
yeah,
I don't know it's very light.
Zinc alloy too,
but it's very sturdy. And then you have like high quality sourced magnets as your mode of opening this bag. You have a separate compartment for your holster. And something I want to point out that you don't really know you need until you realize you need it is full Velcro in this back half. So not just a tiny little patch of Velcro, which if you're thinking like, okay, why would a brand do that? That's stupid. They do that. Okay. They do that. A good example, and this is not I'm going to say their name because I think this is a great fanny pack. Like the Hill People Gear chest rig for running. I love it. I still recommend people buy it. But the back of the pack, I don't think I have it over here, has just a small, probably not even maybe an inch thick line of Velcro to where like Andrew sewed in an entire backing of Velcro for me so that I could have the full backing. So like, this is not something that people find intuitive. Like the fact that Julie's backing is completely Velcro so that you can decide exactly the orientation you want your Velcro backing to be, attached to it is so nice. And it's just not a universal aspect. So I really wanted to make sure to highlight that today. And that's in all of your bags, correct? The ones that have Velcro, right?
The ones that are big enough to do a holster. Yeah, the regular Friday isn't. But
I see.
It's harder to source bigger Velcro. Velcro only comes in certain size rolls. And
interesting.
It's easier to get the smaller stuff and just move on with your life. Turns out. But
right.
Something else, like since we're talking about kind of the fails, I got my first sample of the active bag. I gave it to one of the instructors that I met through one of Vicky's courses. The very first time, I mean, she clipped on the Kydex trigger guard, which we include with them, and the paracord, clipped it in because there's a clip at the bottom, drew it. They had put a plastic clip in, and it just totally, like the very first time it went boop, and it broke. And she messaged me from the range, was like, hey, this just happened. And I was like, you got to be, like, I was clear. And it was those moments where you're like, whoa, we don't all understand what we're doing. Right. We're not all on the same page here. Like, and so then you get a little bit crazy with your like, and this must be reinforced with this stitch and a whatever. But like, otherwise, what are we doing? And I still have that broken one because I was just I'm so cranky about it.
No, I don't blame you. And
it's important.
What I heard from that is that you sent the bag out to be tested before you produced it. That's not, I can't imagine that would be a common thing. In fact, I would put money on the fact that it's not, because some of these bags are just effing terrible. And I wonder, that was my attempt not to cuss. I've wondered, like, wow, you really must have not asked for people's opinions. Or if you did, you didn't do it with the intention of making a difference. I have absolutely been sent a product, and quite frankly, this example, the product was great already. Like, there was really nothing that needed to really be changed. But I've been sent a product before thinking I was giving like amazing feedback. I'll tell you after the show who this was with. And then they had zero intention of changing anything before production. And I think that they just invited us to this place to show that they invited us to this place. It wasn't to really take our feedback and apply it. They ultimately did years later to another version of it. But the same one that we handled there went out, like released weeks later. So, I mean, the fact that you do that, and we're doing that with the fanny pack, we have a list of ladies we're sending it to. That's the thing. I'm like almost more excited about that than the real release. Cause like we're really going to get to hear some, people just play with it. I've been trying to like not give away all the details because I'm hoping that we'll just give it to them and you could explain the importance of this as like a new user to take the bag and try to mess with it without instruction to give like user feedback. Cause we want it to be intuitive enough. Of course, we're supplementing that with education, which I don't know how much you want to touch on that, but how much do you want to
We're finally doing it. Yes.
We're doing it. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm very excited about that. I've never been so excited to be part of something like that.
I was working on building that page today on the Zendira.com so that, there's a home for the education and training and resources. And, because I think it came from just the imposter syndrome on myself that I didn't feel like I had, because I don't have the credentials, right? I don't have the certifications. And so I really held back from doing that, but it doesn't mean that I couldn't, like, I knew you, we could have done this a long time ago. But now we're going to be able to do a series on each bag, and hopefully this will help more women feel comfortable doing it as well. Cause there's also concerns about magnets maybe being too easy. And it's like, wait, no, it's at an angle and there's these, like it's really hard to explain when you're like on the chat on the website and you're like, I really need to make this content. Right. So I'm excited that we're going to have that for people.
Absolutely. And I would kind of I'd like to oppose something you said. The certification to have a voice, to have what am I trying to say? To have the credentials to teach nowadays is so odd. And this is a whole conversation we could have. Like, this is a whole episode. Something I love about Craig Douglas is he talks about how to call this an industry would be to say that there are legitimate standards in place and there aren't. Like, isn't that funny? When he said that, I was like, mind blown. And of course he said it in his Craig Douglas way. I'm not repeating this verbatim. He said it, a bit better than that. But you actually taught me the step back when drawing the firearm to keep the muzzle in the same direction. I have my NRA cert. I did my range master instructor certification training. But at the end of the day, you've really poured yourself into the niche of off-body carry with Vicki Farnham. It's not instruction I have. I have her book, been looking through that. You have her book, you're featured in it. But I think what's really powerful about this situation is that we're coming together, because even in the content you've been approving for the social media, you've given me words to help clarify and articulate what I'm trying to say. I think our two brains, our two pasts, all of our experiences are just going to very nicely mesh for this. Even if it's my face primarily, like, it's very much going to be a collaboration, because I don't have the experience you have. And what's really cool is, like, I feel like we're kind of like setting a stage for the discussion more than we are. We're not like kind of doing that. We are doing that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And we have that conversation more often than I think people would want to know. Like, we have, and there I go on it. But like, we're both going to be in Vegas for SHOT Show, and we're like, how do we have, like, I wanted to do some sort of shoot while we're there, because it's an out place. You're out, and you're likely going to be outfit first in terms of decision making, but that doesn't mean there aren't ways to to stack the deck for yourself of whether that's pepper spray or, a VZ grip or whatever. It's a choice, and it's also a conversation that needs to be happening with friends. Like, do I feel safe going anywhere with you? Yeah. Like, but I can't offsource that responsibility to you. Like, I have to come as a participant. I have to have my awareness. When we go to sit in a restaurant, there's going to be the eye contact of who's watching the door and who's watching the kitchen, and who, it's not just, there's nothing casual about it. And I like that we can bring that out in the brand with the social media and just like show that there's more to these conversations than anybody seems to be showing yet. There's, it's cute bag. And you're like, cool.
Right.
Who cares? Like, it has to function before it's fashion. Like, this isn't, it's not just a cute bag. You can have all the cute bags you want. Wear an Enigma, and you're solid gold. Right. But that one time that you want to change it up, you got to know how you're going to do that. And it's nice to have those kinds of options, that there's cool stuff out there that people are making. And that's really neat to be a part of that too. Because there's cool stuff. Like, there's Enigma. There's cool stuff.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I've seen some pregnant women make the Enigma work for them. But I mean, I could barely handle my holster with a little abdominal tear, so I don't know how I'm going to do with that. But yes, I agree. The conversation needs to keep happening. I'm excited. If you please go and follow all the Zendira socials, we'll definitely be able to post some cool content there from that. But I just like the concept of spreading awareness. You mentioned pepper spray. Like, even if we're not carrying a firearm, having a pepper spray canister. But would you carry a pepper spray canister in a nightgown from a black tie event? Probably not. So whether that be something you put in a wristlet or in a Zendira bag, like, there are now options for that, even if it's not a firearm. Yeah. So really some fun stuff to come. I would like to know, not to pivot totally off, if you have more to that, let's talk about it. But I want to know, what are your goals for 2025? We're in the beginning of January. We've talked about how you're actually starting to feel, not actually, but you've expressed that your excitement for shooting and developing as a shooter has recently increased. So what are some things you're looking forward to in 2025 besides, the fanny pack and the education?
Good question.
Again, I did not give her this before we started.
Survival comes to mind. Last year was a lot because it's a very small team. Sometimes just me and mom. And sometimes, we don't sew. Mom could sew, but we're not sewing your bags. Trust me, you wouldn't want it. But now I've got an assistant, and now we've got you, and we've got a woman here who's doing 2 photo shoots so that we're more current and we can vary and have more of those conversations as part of it. And so it's building out the team and giving myself an opportunity to not do the things I'm very, very bad at, which is responding to emails, and do the things that actually move the brand forward. So I'm looking forward to that, to building that stuff out and getting support where we need it. And I do have to figure out where home is when I'm in the U.S. Like there's home in Texas, there's home in Seattle, there's home there's multiple homes, but in order to get that time on the trigger, I need to do the paperwork and get the stuff and put my time in, and so that needs to all come together for sure. I also have to choose my firearm. I've tried so many that I don't know. I have a really cool staccato hat, but that's just a really cool hat.
Right.
I did get a tour, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Of the ranch. Yeah, that was cool. Cool. They're cool.
That's wonderful. Absolutely. And you need to just come visit me, and we need to just go to the range. That needs to happen. And
yes,
we can get content, but I'd love some trigger time. And just I had so much fun at the range with you we literally tore the bag apart. We were like, what could be better about this? So if we can go and you can play with my Glocks and my SIGs and my Tauruses, and I have one Taurus, so my Taurus, my Walthers, so many fun things there. And you can even draw them from the bags. We'll talk about that post show, but I love that you're thinking about that already. Like, what environment can I put myself in to improve as a shooter? Because it's really great you're having that realization now. There's nothing that truly replaces live fire. Dry fire is amazing. I'm not saying that's not great. If that's all you can do right now, go for it, right? Add some stress, add a timer, add movement, do your thing. But accuracy shooting, feedback from the firearm, kind of hard to replace with dry fire. So if you can realize that at this point in your journey, which you are set up for success. I'm just now realizing that. And I think I'm officially 4 years in. I want to, yeah. Cause I had my gun around COVID time.
Wow.
Yeah. Something like that. And I've been competing for almost 2 years now. Like, I should have figured that out, but I think it was Lena who really said it to me one time. She was like, cause she sent all of her Rose instructors a bunch of ammo, and she was like, there's just nothing that replaces trigger time. So now you have no excuse. Here's ammo. So 8,000 rounds of it to be exact. So there is no excuse. But I know you are set up for success for 2025, and I feel grateful to be able to be close and watch and help that grow. It's going to be so cool.
I'm glad you're on the team. It's a lot of fun showing you the behind the scenes of the messy, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. And how, the things that need to change and that, have just been kind of duct taped together as you're like, no, it's fine. I'll just do it the manual crazy way. And then a viral TikTok, and you're just like, I can't think. It's just like, this is not okay.
Right.
Those are the pain points and the growth that, is a success problem. And I try to be grateful for those.
Right. Absolutely.
I feel like, so it's going to be amazing. It's January and we're launching a new product in a few months. So
yeah, pretty amazing. I can't wait to say the number of months we spent on it before we release it. Like, I have time cards, you guys. Okay. But yeah, no, I've loved this episode. I feel like we hit everything. Was it out of order per se? Yes. But I personally, like, I know as a listener, I like to flow back and forth between product and like, what am I trying to say? Training and product and training. Like, I feel like we had that really nice balance, and I look forward to part 2 when we can jump into, or part 3, if we split this one up, can jump into a deep dive of the fanny pack and the story behind it. I'm just so excited for that. So thank you, Julie. I always ask guest speakers before they go, anything they would like to leave the listeners with.
Yeah. Yeah. I had been thinking about this, and then of course it all like floods at me. Don't be afraid to rebuild. You know, like there's a reason I always start the story of Zendira that I got fired. And sometimes I even say I got capital F fired because it was capital F fired. But, you know, the bounce was so much greater, and, you know, I wouldn't trade it. So don't be afraid to rebuild.
Oh, I love that. Seriously, thank you for sharing that. That was a theme of 2024 for me personally, so I take to that. You know. But yes, thank you guys. Don't be afraid to rebuild. Julie, thank you for your time. Thank you to the listeners who have taken the time to stay around for part 2. I think we're going to split this up into 2. I feel like some bite sizes might be good. If you guys have yet to review the episode or the podcast, please take a moment to do that. I think we're at 4.9 stars on Spotify. So I just want to know who that was, but just kidding. Help us get back to 5. Such a nice thing to be able to say we're at 5, because the guest speakers who come on truly deserve that, in my opinion. Maybe not my hosting, but just rate the guest speakers and not me. For highlights of the episodes, visit SheShield on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, everywhere. We try to do our best to post everywhere. All resources mentioned in this episode, including where to find the Zendira social platforms, the direct website to check out these bags in a little bit more detail, are linked in the show notes, which are the notes below the pod. If you or anyone you know is a firearms owner experiencing a crisis, look into holdmyguns.org. They are an organization that will connect you with a local gun shop or FFL to store your firearm for you. The link to access their website or to find a storage location partner is available in the show notes. Thank you for listening. In the meantime, stay safe and stay vigilant. Are you ready to step up your shooting game? Introducing Walkers Inc., the pioneers in ear protection for shooting, hunting, and commercial applications. For over 25 years, they've been revolutionizing the industry, ensuring your hearing safety and enhancing your shooting experience. Anytime I'm on the range, indoor or outdoor, I use Walkers ear protection to have crystal clear communication with my fellow shooters. I personally use the disruptors for outdoor shooting and the recons for my indoor shooting adventures. Not only does it protect your hearing, but it also protects you. Being able to communicate with others on the range is vital to personal safety. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your safety when the ultimate goal is better self-protection. With Walkers, you'll experience unparalleled comfort, unmatched innovation, and the industry standard in shooting ear protection. Don't settle for anything less when it comes to your safety and enjoyment on the range. You can save on Walker's ear protection and support the podcast by using code SheShield20, that's SHESHIELD 20 at checkout. Again, that's SheShield20 at checkout.